Good afternoon. It's Friday, the 19th of September, 2025, just after 1 o'clock. Welcome to UK Column News. I'm your host, Mike Robinson. My co-host in the studio today, Patrick Henningsen. Welcome to the programme, Patrick.
Great to be with you, Mike.
And journalist Mark Anderson joins us by video link from the United States. Later in the programme, we're going to be looking at rising censorship in the US, the civil war erupting in the Corbyn Sultana camp, MI6 taking to social media, would you believe, and US claims of making their children healthy again. But we're going to begin today with more on the Trump visit to the UK. So Donald Trump has gone home after a day with King Charles on Wednesday and then a day with Keir Starmer yesterday, and it must have been very exciting for him. Now, I'm going to apologise for doing this in advance, but let's begin with an impression of what happened on Wednesday at Windsor Castle, because this all happened after the news programme on Wednesday.
Mr. President, Mrs. Trump, it is with great pleasure that my wife and I welcome you to Windsor Castle on this, your second state visit to the United Kingdom. This unique and important occasion reflects the enduring bond between our two great nations, anchored by the deep friendship between our people. This relationship, which with good reason, we and our predecessors have long called special, has made us safer and stronger through the generations.
Your Majesty, Melania and I are deeply grateful to you and Queen Camilla for your extraordinary graciousness. And to William and Kate, thank you so much. It's been so great being with you today. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. It's a singular privilege to be the first American president welcomed here. And if you think about it, it's a lot of presidents, and this was the second state visit, and that's the first, and maybe that's going to be the last time. I hope it is, actually. But this is truly one of the highest honors of my life.
So it's the highest honor of his life.
You said the last state visit. I hope he doesn't mean for future U.S. presidents or just for him. I wasn't sure. With Donald, you never know.
No, I know that. But anyway, as I say, notably absent from that dinner, by the way, was Prince Andrew. I wonder why. But Trump then, of course, moved to Chequers yesterday. And there was a press conference held at the end of the day. They emphasized the special relationship between Britain and the United States. They presented a apparently united front on Ukraine. And they also on war more generally, actually. And Trump said he felt really let down, Patrick, by Vladimir Putin, particularly in regard to the war in Ukraine. Trump had expected, he said, the conflict to be easier to resolve given his past relations with Putin. And then Starmer said that the UK is leading on encouraging stronger pressure on Russia, in other words, keeping the war going as fast as they can or as much as they can. Trump urged Starmer to use strong measures to curb irregular migration. And he even went as far as to suggesting deploying the military on the beaches. It was, other than that, the usual nonsense. But towards the end of the press conference, there was, of course, a Q&A, and a Sky journalist asked, well, about the elephant in the room. Let's just listen to this.
Finally, if I may, the elephant in the room, Lord Mandelson, he is no longer the ambassador. Do you have some sympathy with him that he lost his job over historic links to Jeffrey Epstein? Thank you very much, sir.
I don't know him, actually. I had heard that, and I think maybe the Prime Minister would be better speaking of that. That was a choice that he made, and I don't know. What is your answer to that?
Well, I mean, it's very straightforward. Some information came to light last week which wasn't available when he was appointed, and I made a decision about it, and that's very clear. On the question of the pressure on Putin and
So basically, they couldn't change the subject quick enough, Patrick.
Starmer looked very uncomfortable when Trump punted to him on the Mandelson question. Trump likes to do that. He likes to punt when he doesn't know what to say. And Starmer got caught off guard there.
Absolutely. But it was Gaza, which perhaps indicated a tension between them, certainly on that topic anyway. Starmer said the UK would recognise a Palestinian state, not sure that he said when, but anyway, he said it would, as part of a broader peace package. Trump disagreed with that plan, and well, then this happened.
Well, let me be really clear about Hamas. They're a terrorist organisation who can have no part in any future governance in Palestine. And what happened on October the 7th was the worst attack since the Holocaust. We have extended family in Israel. I understand firsthand the psychological impact that had across Israel. So I know exactly where I stand in relation to Hamas. Hamas, of course, don't want a two-state solution. They don't want peace. They don't want a ceasefire.
I find that completely obscene, Patrick. Not only, well, I mean, the Trump smacking Starmer on the back, that was slightly weird in a certain way, but this idea that psychological damage is equivalent to tens of thousands of deaths is just obscene.
I mean, the threat of annihilation is somehow Trump's actual genocide. The report from the UN came out. We'll talk about that later. But all this talk about the free the hostages. There's 10,000 Palestinians being held in arbitrary detention by the Israeli government. And that's part of the negotiations. That's been part of the ceasefire. For Starmer to say Hamas doesn't want peace, doesn't want a ceasefire is patently false. They've been in negotiations, multiple rounds, even before Trump was sworn into office. So I don't know what Keir Starmer is saying there, or he's just playing to Trump, showing that he is resolute and steadfast for Israel, all in for Israel. And that's what it looked like, because what Starmer said doesn't actually correspond to reality.
So what other coverage has it been on this issue of a Palestinian state?
Well, that's the big story, was when Starmer gave that kind of quid pro quo threat that if Israel doesn't somehow stop the forced starvation of an entire population in Gaza and work towards a negotiated settlement or ceasefire, that they'll be punished by Britain recognizing a Palestinian state. I mean, it's preposterous how he framed that anyway. But that deadline is September 22nd, which is coming up very quickly, I think early next week. So right. What's going to happen as a result of that? Let's take a look here. And again, going to the mainstream press here, papers of record, in this instance anyway, for The Guardian, Starmer to recognize a Palestinian state after Trump's visit. So let's take a look at that. This is basically the deal. Starmer threatened to, quote, recognize Palestine during the upcoming UN General Assembly unless Israel took decisive steps to end the suffering in Gaza, reach a ceasefire, refrain from annexing territory in the West Bank. All of these things Israel is either not doing or doing against what Starmer wants here, and commit to a peace process that results in a two-state solution. Israel's already categorically, Mike, ruled out a two-state solution. They don't want it. Right. The United States has ruled out a two-state solution. So we're saying this. Really? Keir? Really? Did you actually say this? Do you actually mean this? Because it's patently impossible. I mean, it's not going to happen.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't know what this is other than, Mike, to buy time, because by the time they get around to actually recognizing a Palestinian state, there will be no more Palestinians in Gaza. They have been killed or they have been ethnically cleansed. And they're working on the West Bank as we speak, frog marching thousands of Palestinian men and people out of their homes, burning homes, settlers attacking Palestinians. I mean, that's what's happening now.
Right.
So what was this threat really about? Was it to buy time so Israel could change facts on the ground? Or was it, as we spoke about before the program, that it was designed to push Israel to finish the job? That's a black pill take.
Right.
But it does look like that's pretty realistic based on what we're looking at.
Indeed. Well, let's come back then to the Wednesday banquet for a moment, because the AI all-stars were there. Because as we mentioned on Wednesday's news, the 31 billion tech prosperity deal, including the announcement of the Stargate UK AI project, was made in time for Trump's arrival. But the AI crowd weren't the only ones with dollars in their eyes, dollar signs in their eyes. More US investment in the UK was announced. That's about 150 billion pounds of investment. That included £100 billion investment pledge from Blackstone over the next decade into the UK. Blackstone claims that they have, quotes, deployed more than 70 billion across over 100 businesses and investments in the UK over the past 20 years, supporting wide sectors, including housing, tourism, logistics. And so they're sticking another £100 billion in there as well. So that's good news, isn't it? Well, is it? Because, of course, what is Blackstone? A vulture capital firm. So this is an asset stripping exercise effectively. Anyway.
But just quickly, Mike, they're one of those large giant funds and firms that's buying up housing, right?
That's right, yeah.
In the UK, in America, and around Europe. So a certain percentage of people at some point will end up having Blackstone as their landlord.
Absolutely. 3.9 billion investment from this organization, Prologis, or they're another leading investment firm. This is apparently going to strengthen its investment in Cambridge Biomedical Campus and major upgrade of the Daventry International Rail Freight Terminal. All great stuff. This is, of course, supporting the growth in life sciences, which is something that both the Tories and the Labour Party have been absolutely determined to progress with.
Life science, translated, means big pharma.
Big pharma, but it also means genomics, specifically genomics research and so on. So that's that. You'll be delighted to know that Palantir gets its claws even further into the UK with another £1.5 billion to help make the UK a defence innovation leader and create 350 jobs, says the UK government, as it makes the UK its new European headquarters for war. The deal was signed by Secretary of State for War John Healey, as you can see on screen there at the moment. And it's going to help the UK military develop the latest digital tools and harness AI technology to accelerate decision-making, improve targeting, and keep British people safe. So we're going to keep British people safe by targeting, everybody else, it seems. And they say that some of these new capabilities will support development of what's known as the kill chain, whereby military planners fuse a wide range of information and data sources from open source and military platforms to provide military commanders with faster options for attacking an enemy target. This would form, they say, an element of the digital targeting web. And that, of course, was in the Strategic Defence Review. And we talked about that several weeks ago on this programme. So, when we're talking about the targeting of Palestinians in Doha or anywhere else, my question is, who's providing Israel with the targeting information? I think Britain has a part to play in that.
Well, the targeting of journalists in their homes using like the Knock Knock or Daddy's Home AI-driven apps that the IDF using to target journalists and their families. 350 jobs.
Yeah, that's impressive, isn't it?
A real shot of adrenaline to the economy. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, indeed. Let's quickly move on. 150 million investment, from American company Amentum, creating more than 3,000 jobs this time in Glasgow and Warrington, and also across the Midlands. Boeing is going to convert 2 737 aircraft in Birmingham for the US Air Force, so that's an impressive deal as well. This is the first US Air Force aircraft built in the UK for over 50 years, so that's 150 jobs. And US engineering firm Stax is another 37 million to expand their UK operations. And of course, that's all net zero and emissions reductions and so on. So, what can we say? Major funding into UK-based research and development startups. It's all about they say about accelerating, because it's all accelerationism at work here, accelerating growth in biotech, AI, and advanced manufacturing. So there we go. What can we say about that? Fantastic stuff.
So all the great deals coming to the UK, supposedly.
Yes.
So, interesting.
But that takes us then, if we're talking about, we were talking about Ukraine a second ago, in that sort of part of the world, there's more going on.
Well, it's interesting, the exchange between Starmer and Trump. We've always said that Britain's always been there to discipline Washington, to make sure they're on track, continuing to escalate against Russia.
Right.
Certainly that's the dynamic, the attitude we see between Starmer and Trump.
Yes.
But, the new front might be opening up in this that will probably drag the United States back in a bigger way, and that is Moldova. We'll bring this up on screen here. Next stop, Moldova. That's a legitimate question there. And if we look at this is a report at 21stcenturywire.com. Go in and have a look at this. Some interesting data has been leaked, which was reported by a Turkish website, the Dik Gazette, and also by the Ukrainian journalist as well, Panchenko, who basically put out a lot of this information on her X account. And this is one of the things we're looking at here, Mike. State visit by Maia Sandu. She is the pro-Western, pro-NATO, pro-EU president of Moldova. So this was only in, I believe, at the end of July. And there she is meeting with King Charles there. So the implication here, Mike, is that, and again, here, French legionnaires, this is in the leaks of Moldovan and Transnistrian or origin being shortlisted for special operations, potential false flag in Transnistria to draw the Ukraine in to create a new front for this conflict. If that happens, you know what's going, everyone, the global community, France, Britain are going to go to Trump and say, more weapons and cash for Zelensky. Look, the Russians are hitting us from Transnistria. That's how it's going to go. So they're looking at destabilizing Moldova and the breakaway pro-Russian enclave of Transnistria in order to start a new front in this proxy war, but really to drum up media interest. This is also going to make an emergency for Romania as well, which is bordering Moldova. So you can see they still believe they have life left in this conflict beyond the current front lines in Ukraine. So we're telling people to pay close attention because there are plans afoot led by France, with the UK, Germany also, and Brussels involved, but led by France to fire up Moldova and Transnistria. And that is extremely concerning.
They're dying to get some ability to claim Russian attack on outside of the borders of Ukraine itself. They're absolutely dying to do that. Another
threat to Europe,
yes,
basically.
Yes. Okay. Well, just very briefly, Mark, if I welcome you to the program, what are your thoughts on what we've just been discussing and this fantastic second state visit by Trump?
Well, certainly the two-state solution is something that is probably going to be in the rearview mirror permanently. In other words, all that talk of a two-state solution is essentially impossible. The destruction evidently is too great. And for Starmer to talk about a two-state solution, even though at the same time he was harping about things that made it sound like he would be against such a thing, it's amazing the unreality that's being embraced here as they talk about a two-state solution. I mean, how would that even be done anymore, given what's happened in the last year or so? And so they've went from being unrealistic to sheer fantasy in terms of declaring that they want a two-state solution, because I really don't think such a thing would even be desirable. I mean, if you take it to the brass tacks, that was Palestine. And through the Balfour Declaration, it was overthrown and became what we know as Israel. So a two-state solution, while it's probably physically impossible and politically unrealistic, is really not even enough if you look at the range and the scope of the injustice that's happened over the decades.
Absolutely.
It would require much more than a two-state solution to compensate for what happened to Palestine, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, thank you for that. Now, let's move on then. If you like what the UK column does, you'd like to support us, the options are available. If you hit the button on the front page of the UK column website, we do need your ongoing support. And if you can't support us financially, then please at least support us by sharing our material and helping us deal with the censorship regime. Everybody that is contributing in some way, we give you huge thanks because it is vastly appreciated. Now, another reminder that we've got an event coming up on the 18th of October, UK column on location. All the tickets are sold for that now, but it is still possible to watch on the live stream. So if you'd like to have a look and get a ticket for that, you'd be more than welcome for that as well. Now tonight, Jerm is back for one night. He's away in China at the moment, and he is speaking to Carl Za. He's got a little trailer here. Let's have a look at that.
egg. It's a steamed egg. So what do you do with it? So you just drink it. Nobody cares if it's a private conversation. It's just like this. It's a private conversation. Nobody cares. They are worried that American internet platform will be used for will be weaponized for sabotage. This is how you get a reality TV shows as a president of the United States.
We're in Shanghai. Is this Eminem playing?
That's Eminem playing.
We're listening to Eminem.
Yeah,
in Shanghai.
Yeah.
Feeds into what you were saying earlier about the censorship not necessarily being about trying to stop Western influence.
Exactly.
So for that full conversation, 7:00 tonight on the live stream, join us for that and hope to see you there. Okay, Mark, back to you then. And let's have a look at the situation in the United States with respect to censorship. And we'll begin with Jimmy Kimmel.
Yes, it is an ironic situation. A lot of people find Jimmy Kimmel's humor to be kind of crude, rude, and lewd, oftentimes in poor taste. And apparently what he said, I don't watch him, but apparently what he said was that with the Charlie Kirk event, that the Trump administration, those on the right in general, were reticent or hesitant to consider that it could be, quote, one of their own that shot Charlie Kirk, and that they wanted to too easily blame the left. I won't quote Jimmy Kimmel on exactly what he said. Some people found it to be in poor taste, but the story is kind of behind the story. In other words, there's more going on, and it reminds me of the Sun Valley, Idaho annual billionaire event where I talked about machinations going on with media consolidation and how Trump was using that as sort of a bargaining chip. Well, I got a slide here that just kind of sums this up. ABC yanks Kimmel to curry FCC favor, ? I'm reading from some of my notes that I compiled. Nexstar, which operates about 24 ABC affiliates, issued a press release saying it strongly objects to Kimmel's remarks about Kirk and said its stations would replace the show with other programming. But here's what's interesting. Amid all what's going on, as the smoke clears, Nexstar is seeking Trump administration approval to acquire another big U.S. station group called Tegna, Tegna. The deal requires the FCC to loosen the federal government's limits on broadcast station ownership. Minutes after Nexstar criticized Kimmel publicly, ABC as a whole said the Kimmel show was being yanked nationwide. So in other words, Nexstar may have did its part to yank Kimmel off the air so it could curry favor with the Trump administration's FCC in order to buy Tegna. And once again, as when I reported about Sun Valley, these media consolidations that the Trump administration seems to either favor or not strongly object kind of goes against the grain of criticizing the fake news, because the FCC's real job is not to so much look at content, not to take someone off the air because they disagree with what he or she said. Their real job is mainly to prevent consolidation, to prevent any one interest from owning too much media. In other words, to reduce ownership concentration like that and centralization. So Trump's FCC commissioner, however, is, something went out there a little bit light-wise, but Trump's FCC commissioner, however, is looking at the Kimmel thing on an ideological or political plane rather than doing the FCC's core job, and that's to prevent media consolidation. So that's sort of the story behind the story right now.
Thank you, Mark. But sticking with this issue, what's been going on around the whole Charlie Kirk thing?
Well, just continuing with the fallout from the Charlie Kirk shooting and the political fallout from that, it's interesting how this is developing. And we'll bring on screen here. That's the Attorney General for Donald Trump, Pam Bondi. And there's Charlie Kirk in the background. So AG, Pam Bondi's confusion over hate speech and free speech seems to be a problem here. It wasn't that long ago that conservatives and the right were screaming and frothing at the mouth about the radical left and left authoritarianism, cancel culture, enforcing hate speech. This is the worst thing ever. And all of a sudden, now MAGA becomes AOC. It's absolutely incredible. Here is Pam Bondi from her own words.
Speech, and then there's hate speech. And there is no place, especially now, especially after what happened to Charlie, in our society.
Do you see more law enforcement going after these groups who are using hate speech and putting cuffs on people so we show them that some action is better than no action?
We will absolutely target you, go after you if you are targeting anyone with hate speech, anything. And that's across the aisle.
That is just incredible. That degree of attempted limitation on. I mean, where's the First Amendment in all this?
From the country's top law enforcement official,
right?
Doesn't actually understand or has read the Constitution. At least it appears that way. But let's look at how this is basically playing out. Here is Pam Bondi, and just to get the statement that she made there's free speech and then there's hate speech, and there's no place, especially now, especially after what happened to Charlie, in our society. It's all very arbitrary and very vague, and that's the problem with hate speech. This is the Free Speech Center. It's one of the few universities in America, Middle Tennessee State University, that has a specialist department on this very issue. And this is what they say. This is, to put it bluntly, absolutely false. So-called hate speech is free speech. That is the whole point of the First Amendment. So Pam Bondi here get it absolutely incorrect, wrong. She gets an F on her Constitutional 101 class on this. So, and listen, don't take our word for it. This is what Charlie Kirk said in 2020.
Is that even hate speech should be completely and totally allowed in our country. The most disgusting speech should absolutely be protected. And it's not a viewpoint that is held by the left. The ACLU used to hold this viewpoint. The American Civil Liberties Union, they sued so that legitimate Nazis could march through downtown Skokie. You remember this? Back in the 80s and 90s. Now, why would the ACLU do this? Because they said, as soon as you use the word hate, that is a very subjective term. Because then all of a sudden it is in the eyes or it is in the implementation of whomever has the power. So here's my belief. The more speech, the better.
So that I mean, if they're talking about doing this in Charlie's legacy, that demonstrates that they're not respecting his legacy at all.
No, it just shows how clueless all of these political actors are. I was just speaking to a former board member of the ACLU last night, Garland Nixon, who many people know, who resigned from his position because of the cancel culture and because of their pro-big pharma stance regarding speech in relation to vaccines. So there's people of principle on the old left that would actually follow the Constitution. That's what the ACLU used to do. But here is, the fallout from Pam Bondi, why everything Pam Bondi said about hate speech is wrong. This is from the Foundation for Individual Rights and Education, defending free speech on campuses across the United States. And Pam Bondi, unfortunately, Mike, had to walk this back just a day ago. And she clarifies now that hate speech won't be prosecuted. Let's get clarification on that from the Attorney General. Attorney General Pam Bondi tells Axios her office is not prosecuting or investigating anybody for alleged hate speech, only for speech that she says unlawfully incites violence. Wow. So she is picking this issue up gradually, because the whole point of hate speech, if you look at the constitutional cases on these very issues, they're tied to incitement. So the law states very specifically there has to be a direct line to actual incitement or imminent incitement or violence as a result of the speech. If that cannot be shown at the time, then of course the government can't come in and prosecute, similar to yelling fire in a crowded theater here. So that's where that issue is at the moment, Mike. Now, Donald Trump has taken it to yet another level on this, just to extend this discussion. Here's what Trump has to say.
And a woman, in many cases, women, you can see they're professional agitators. I had one the other night. I had 4 the other night, all in one group, total phonies. I started to scream when I got into a restaurant, oh, something with Palestine. And I said, well, I'm doing a great job for peace in the Middle East. I should get lots of awards for that, right? With the Abraham Accords and everything else. But a woman just stood up and started screaming. And she got booed out of the place, too. There were a lot of people in the restaurant. I went there to show how safe, and it was safe. I mean, the woman is just a mouthpiece. All she was a paid agitator. And you have a lot of them. And I've asked Pam to look into that in terms of RICO, bringing RICO cases against the criminal RICO, because they should be put in jail. What they're doing to this country is really subversive.
So for us Brits, what are RICO cases?
This is the RICO statute for organized crime and racketeering. I mean,
wow.
It's a bit rich for Trump to be saying that, because he himself could be sued under a RICO statute for trying to strong-arm Disney and ABC, threatening FCC, not approving a merger and acquisition. I mean, that's racketeering from the White House. So, I mean, this president is unbelievable. So Trump clearly doesn't believe or understand the First Amendment, or has never read the U.S. Constitution. I honestly think he hasn't, because if he did and even had a freshman high school level civics 101 understanding of it, he wouldn't say such things, because that is protected speech. Just even if they are paid agitators, talking about Code Pink,
right,
anti-war protesters that bothered him during his restaurant dinner the other night, you can't send the attorney general after people that you don't like who are protesting and exercising their First Amendment rights. I mean, for a president of the United States to say this, especially somebody who claims to be a conservative, who ran as a Republican, it's beyond the pale. Honestly, I don't know what to say. So it just goes from bad to worse. Now let's look at this issue regarding right here. We'll bring this up on screen. So this brings up the Section 230 debate, Mike, about Wikipedia, Facebook. Will they allow free speech or make editorial decisions? If they do, they fall foul of Section 230. So that's where this issue's coming up. So now what's happening, Mike, and this is related to the online safety conversation in the UK, is that states, and we discussed this before, individual states are doing end runs around the First Amendment and around this Section 230 issue to bring in digital IDs, for instance, age checks and so forth.
So the point is, it's exactly the same policy as we have in the United Kingdom, but you can't do it in the United States at a federal state level. At a federal state level, it has to be done at an individual state level in an effort to try to circumvent the limitations on the federal government. Yeah,
it is. And so this is happening. These things will be challenged. Some will be knocked back in the higher courts, no doubt. But there is a real pressure, isn't there, from various forces to want to regulate speech online, and they're using every means possible to do it. And that's the thing that we need to keep our eyes on. So just to continue on this discussion here, now bringing up this issue, we'll bring this up on screen here. This went onto the gray zone, which was Max Blumenthal and Anya Parampil penned this story here, basically saying that Charlie Kirk, according to a source, offered to fund Turning Point USA. Kirk refused to take a trip to Israel, which Netanyahu was asking for. And this wasn't long before his shooting, his death. So that's interesting. And it goes further here. Billionaire Bill Ackman convened stormy Israel intervention with Charlie Kirk, say sources. This was a meeting that was called in the elite Hamptons in Long Island, where Charlie Kirk was summoned for a struggle session, apparently, on the issue of Israel. At least that's the implication in the gray zone story there. So the circumstantial case is there was a lot of pressure from the Israeli lobby, from Israeli interests on Turning Point. And we talked about this last week, Mike, that Charlie Kirk represents the billionaire donor class that pumped money into Turning Point and made it a $100 million a year concern. You're dealing with major forces here, and a lot of Zionist billionaires, Christian and Jewish, in America. So we'd be naive not to bring this up and not to discuss it circumstantially. The forensic case of the shooting is a separate conversation, but these were the political forces that were swirling around the 31-year-old Charlie Kirk, very young man. And you're talking about some big, powerful forces here, including the ones that have captured the White House and have captured Congress and Senate. Now, here is Benjamin Netanyahu, who keeps denying that he had anything to do with it. What's the old Shakespeare saying? Lady
doth protest too much. Yeah.
Doth protest too much. I think Bibi doth protest way too much. Listen to this.
Joseph Goebbels, the Nazi propaganda minister, said that the bigger the lie, the faster it will spread. Well, somebody has fabricated a monstrous big lie that Israel had something to do with Charlie Kirk's horrific murder. This is insane. It is false. It is outrageous. Charlie Kirk was a giant, a once-in-a-century talent who defended freedom, defended America, defended our common Judeo-Christian civilization. Charlie loved Israel. He loved the Jewish people. He told me so in a letter that he sent me just a few months ago. One of my greatest joys as a Christian, he said, is advocating for Israel and forming alliances with Jews to protect Judeo-Christian civilization. He encouraged me to make the case directly to the American people about how vital Israel is to U.S. national security. He told me, the Holy Land is so important to my life, it pains me to see support for Israel slip away. Now, if Charlie disagreed with a policy of mine or a decision here and there, not only did I not mind, I welcomed it. This is the essence of Charlie. This is the essence of a free country. It's exactly what Charlie stood for. And I knew that his suggestions always came from the heart, from his love for Israel and from his love for the Jewish people. A few weeks before his death, I spoke to Charlie. I invited him to visit Israel again. And sadly, that won't happen. Now some are peddling these disgusting rumors, perhaps out of obsession, perhaps with Qatari funding. What I do know is this: Charlie Kirk was a great man, and a great man deserves honor, not lies. Rest in peace, Charlie Kirk. May your memory be a blessing.
So he's implying that the gray zone are funded by Qatar, which is completely not true. And it used to be Judeo-Christian values, but now it's Judeo-Christian civilization. This is a new upgrade to that talking point. I wasn't briefed on that, but thank you, Bibi, for that. Now, Bibi misquoted Joseph Goebbels. Let's bring the man himself up on screen here. We'll bring this up on screen. There he is. Hitler's infamous propaganda minister, Joseph Goebbels. There's the actual quote. So Bibi misquoted him. The actual quote starts off with, if you tell a lie big enough and keep repeating it, people will eventually come to believe it. The lie can be maintained only for such a time as the state can shield the people from the political, economic, and or military consequences of the lie. So not only did Bibi misquote him, but he took it totally out of context. We'll bring that up on screen again. And, you know, we shouldn't be too hard here because clearly both men are passionate about their propaganda, and that is the bottom line. Back to you, Mike.
Yes, thank you, Patrick. Let us come back to the UK then. And, well, a little less than a week ago, Craig Murray published this article, It's Your Party, and I'll Cry If I Want To. Now, in it, he argues that the newly formed Your Party, led by Jeremy Corbyn and Zara Sultana, risks becoming undemocratic. He and many others supporting the project assumed that it would adopt one member, one vote democracy with major decisions on policy and leadership and so on made by all members, ideally via online mechanisms. Instead, the party's leadership, he said, is structuring to limit that democratic control. He said, as I say, this is almost a week ago now, he said, as of now, there are many people who have signed up, but they have no formal membership rights, no say in administration, no vote in elections, no transparency over how money is spent or who is employed. He talks about local founding meetings being held by selective invitation, also by small parties or union groups rather than open to all who signed up. And he talks about the planned founding conference in November, which he says will be delegate-based and self-selecting, and that ordinary supporters won't be able to simply stand as delegates. And he says that the methods used, splitting into working groups, moderated by pre-chosen individuals, minimizing or avoiding votes and debate, are designed to ensure control remains with a small cadre. And he talks about taking part at the Occupy meetings in St. Paul's, and seeing the same tactics there, tactics that you and I both saw at St. Paul's as well. So he, at the end of this article, issues a call to action. He says that supporters should demand immediate opening of formal membership and insist on democratic delegate selection. And he said that people should be pressing for one member, one vote elections for all major positions and ensuring policy decisions are voted on properly to resist manipulative meeting formats. And he believes that unless this happens, your party will mirror the centralized top-down political culture that it says that it wants to replace. So that was a week ago. And well, yesterday, all hell broke loose, Patrick. So a few days later, Zara Sultana seems to have taken what Craig Murray wrote to heart. And she apparently unilaterally set up a membership website for the party and then spent yesterday morning asking people to sign up on X and other platforms. Now, apparently more than 20,000 people signed up at £55 a pop, and up to the point that Corbyn stepped in, claiming that the membership site was unauthorised. Her statement then is on screen because she posted this to X. She said, "My sole motivation has been to safeguard the grassroots movement that is essential to building this party. Unfortunately, I've been subjected to what can only be described as a sexist boys' club. I've been treated appallingly and excluded completely. They've refused to allow any other woman with voting rights on the working group blocking gender balance committee that both Jeremy and I signed up to." And she said that the membership site was in line with the roadmap set out to members on Monday and is a safe, secure, legitimate portal for the party. So, but I do wonder, Patrick, how much of this is just the latest expression of infighting that began with the Beautiful Days Festival and her public statement of being an anti-Zionist.
Yeah, and also repudiating the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism, the thing that sunk Jeremy Corbyn and his leadership and ultimately got him kicked out of his own party that he served his whole career for. But it's interesting, Mike, the sortition model coming under criticism here.
Yes.
When done to scale at big national party levels, it's rife for hijacking, isn't it?
Absolutely.
For steering. And next thing you know, especially the way it's compartmentalized is exactly what Craig Murray is describing here. Hugely problematic.
It certainly is. It's certainly what Ben Rubin's been warning about. We've been talking about it as well. It is hugely problematic. But let's move back to international affairs and the UN Commission. What's it been up to?
Well, the report that's come out is completely without any real challenge in terms of the data here. Israel, according to the UN Commission, is guilty of genocide, has failed to prevent genocide, has enacted genocide against the native Palestinian population here. We've got all the details up here on this post, as well as all of the documents and the support links for this. So if you want to see what's in this report, what it means, and be able to click through the links, as well as the embedded document itself, it's there at 21stcenturywire.com, Mike. But it's important that we take a look at the current situation right now, which is happening in Gaza here. More than 250,000 have been displaced from Gaza in the past month. I think that's a low estimate here, but this is according to UN official figures here. Tens of thousands more fleeing makeshift homes. And here is the bottom line. Israel themselves, the Israelis claim that Gaza City is a Hamas stronghold and that 450,000 civilians have left. So we'll on that issue of how this is being framed in propaganda, let's take a look at this report from ABC News. This pretty much is in a nutshell how the U.S. media, mainstream media, is covering this, and it's absolutely appalling. Let's listen.
The Israeli military says its forces are expanding their activities in Gaza City. Hundreds of thousands of people are being forced from their homes, and most have nowhere to go. ABC's foreign correspondent Tom Soufi-Burridge is in Tel Aviv and just spoke to a spokesperson from the IDF. Tom, what are they telling you?
Yeah, they pushed back on a number of things. I challenged them on the evidence that they've got that Hamas is using all of those high-rise buildings in Gaza, which we've seen demolished by the IDF, blown up. The IDF spokesperson basically said that they have intel. He wouldn't publish, or they won't publish any of that intel. but he suggested that Hamas is using some of those buildings as lookout points, basically, onto areas of Gaza City where the IDF is operating. I also challenged them about this video of this young girl being pulled from the rubble, which, does speak volumes, I think, about, the human toll in the war. He wasn't aware of that video, but he reiterated points that the IDF has said before, that the IDF says it is doing everything in its power to try and mitigate the risk to civilians, the human toll from the fighting. That said, of course, the latest figures from the Hamas-run Gaza Health Ministry are 65,000 people killed in this war, which is lasting nearly 2 years. I also challenged the IDF spokesperson, crucially, on this claim by the IDF that this operation in Gaza City could last months. And I also said to them, well, look, the Trump administration has called for it to be a potentially concise operation. Those two things don't really seem to match up.
What was that term that he used there? Hamas-led.
Oh, the Hamas-controlled Gaza Ministry of Health.
Right. This is the same kind of thing as the full-scale invasion of Ukraine. They're using these buzzwords that actually go across every mainstream media channel, and they have to use them.
They have to use them to discredit any of the claims or figures or death figures coming out of Gaza. That's why that so-called journalist used that caveat. The other thing he says, this is a journalist, British journalist for the American outlet, standing there saying that he's in Tel Aviv and he just got done speaking to the IDF spokesperson, an anonymous, unnamed IDF spokesperson. That is the extent of mainstream journalism. They won't go in, they're not allowed to go into Gaza. They can only sit there and wait for breadcrumbs of information from the IDF spokesperson. And do you think that's going to be objective? Do you think it's going to be fact-based? And then he goes on to basically smear the Gaza Ministry of Health, calling it Hamas, then discrediting. And then he puts you into a cul-de-sac at the end. Did you catch that? Oh, and I challenged him. They said it was going to be a quick operation, and the Trump administration wants a quick operation, but critics say it could take months. So here we are arguing about the timeline of this illegal ethnic cleansing operation and this genocide, this annihilation of the native Palestinian population, and the mainstream journalists there playing tag team between the anchor and the so-called reporter on the ground have herded their audience into a cul-de-sac. I mean, this is just unbelievable. After 2 years, that's the best these people can do. It's disgusting. Honestly, but we've had 2 years of this. So if you wonder why Americans are clueless about what's happening in Gaza, this is why, right there. So anyway, but let's take a look here at this timeline here. Look at this. We'll take a look. So this is March 2025. You can see there's the large yellow box in the middle. Those are tents, okay? But it changes over time. Let's take a look at that. So there are tents in March right here, and then no tents because that's been bombed. That's August 2025, and that's September 2025, further destroyed. So it's on a loop right now. So you can see the changes, Mike, here. Israel are bombing with U.S. and British weapons, are bombing tent cities with refugees in them, and they've annihilated all potential inhabitable buildings, claiming that they're Hamas lookout points. That is what is going on right now. And so while all this is going on here is the Israeli minister, Smotrich, Bezalel Smotrich. Gaza is a potential real estate bonanza. Israel talking with the U.S. about dividing it up. They're talking about this openly.
And he said something about how much it was costing them to run this operation, implying that they needed to make a profit out of it somehow.
Yeah, whinging about the overhead costs. I mean, these people are incredible.
Sick.
So while that's going on, so they just annihilate Gaza, kill and drive everybody out, say it's a big real estate deal for Jared Kushner and everybody else, all the other sort of parasites that will jump in on this deal. But here are the figures. Okay, this is Middle East Monitor. This is a academic study done by Dr. Gideon Polya and Professor Richard Hill, and they have calculated the death toll since October 7th, okay? Not just dead from direct munitions, but also excess deaths as a result of health, starvation, dysentery, injuries, and so forth. 680,000 dead. 680,000 dead. How high does this number have to go before it raises some kind of an alarm or an ethical alarm for the British Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, who only can comment about how terrible Hamas was on October 7th, but nothing about the 680,000 dead. That's not a Hamas study. That's a Western academic study. So when the numbers really come out in the end, and this is what they're trying to suppress, this is what the Israelis, the Americans, the British, the Europeans are trying to suppress the true death numbers in Gaza, people missing or dead and total casualties. It's happening, folks. They're in the final stages right now. So while we're all following Charlie Kirk and whatever the other drama is, or the state visit in the UK, Israel is right now pushing for what they call the final solution to the Palestinian problem. Wake up, people.
Absolutely. Mark, let me welcome you back to the program now. And, well, children dying hand over fist in Gaza. Nobody in the United States seemed to care, but they're going to make their children healthy over there.
Well, this is going to be the test, guys, of RFK Jr. since his February 13 confirmation to be HHS secretary. The first slide is the cover page of a 20-page report involving 11 federal agencies, Make Our Children Healthy Again, emphasis on the word healthy. It even involves the U.S. Department of Agriculture and the EPA, as well as the NIH and CDC and FDA and things like that. The MAHA Commission unveiled this sweeping strategy to make our children healthy again, and it was unveiled around September 9th. The commission has released the Make Our Children Healthy Again strategy. It's a sweeping plan with more than 120 initiatives to reverse the failed policies, they're saying, that fueled America's childhood chronic disease epidemic. And there is a chronic disease problem with American children, to be sure. The strategy outlines targeted executive actions, and we hear this often, to advance gold standard science. That is repeatedly said, gold standard science. Let's put this slide up. It kind of summarizes some important things. The executive order that is relevant to this was signed, curiously enough, the very day that RFK was confirmed back on February 13. So they must have been pretty confident that RFK would be confirmed, because all of this would had to have been laid out. President Trump at that time signed Executive Order 14212, establishing the president's Make America Healthy Again Commission. And that that order directed that commission to submit to the president what we're talking about now, the Make Our Children Healthy Again assessment, according to the strategy report, the 20-page strategy report. Now, this is also important to consider. Vaccine injuries are included. The Health and Human Services, in collaboration with the National Institutes of Health, they're saying, will investigate vaccine injuries with improved data collection and analysis. This is a welcome thing, generally speaking, including a new vaccine injury research program, emphasis, at the NIH's clinical center that may expand to centers around the country. So there could be these vaccine injury research centers being built around the country. Of course, these things remain to be seen. This next slide shows the larger 70-page or so report from which the 20-page strategy report was drawn. This came from the White House itself, again, on September 9th. That's what it looks like. That's the larger 70-some pages. And it talks about a strategic realignment to turn the tide and better protect our children. We will begin reversing, they're saying, the childhood chronic disease crisis by confronting its root causes, not just its symptoms. Again, emphasis there because that's important and it's good to hear that. After a century of costly and ineffective approaches, the federal government will lead, they're saying, a coordinated transformation, big word there, of our food, health, and scientific systems. And I list the sources there that for those that want to freeze the frame. But moving on from there, we have a couple quotes from RFK Jr. himself as HHS secretary. This one, the Trump administration is mobilizing every part of government, he's saying, to confront the childhood chronic disease, the chronic disease epidemic, And then there's another quote from RFK. This strategy, he says, represents the most sweeping reform in modern history. Again, very big words, realigning our food and health systems, driving education, and unleashing science to protect America's children and families. And this is another important part I'm emphasizing here. He's claiming we're ending the corporate capture of public health. That, of course, is a very big statement. Ending the corporate capture would involve big pharma. That would involve inevitably, if he's serious, the mRNA, the whole crisis brought on by the mRNA injections, which aren't even traditional vaccines, which have caused so much harm. Anyway, looking back very briefly, I recently talked about how RFK was roasted by, among others, Senator Bernie Sanders, and this slide just briefly recalls that. And that was at the time concerning the CDC director, Susan Menares, having been fired by RFK. Several senior CDC officials quit in protest, and RFK fired all 17 CDC Vaccine Advisory Committee members. He fired all of them. That's what was happening at the time recently when RFK was put on the hot seat by Bernie Sanders, among others. But then there's been another hearing since then. And this article from the Children's Health Defense, the Defender, talked about at the time an upcoming Senate hearing asking, is it a ploy by Big Pharma and the big media to position things or create a climate to get RFK Jr. fired? Well, since that article ran, that hearing took place this past Wednesday on the 17th. And this slide gives a summation of that. The chairman of the committee, Bill Cassidy, a Republican from Louisiana, he announced the hearing, and it initially did not have RFK on the hot seat. He hasn't been interviewed yet. That's coming up. The committee is continuing its work, but it's on, basically, it's about restoring radical transparency at the CDC and protecting children's health. But apparently Susan Menares, the former CDC official that was fired, and a colleague of hers testified this past Wednesday, trying to shift all the blame to RFK, saying he's, taking the CDC apart in an improper way and trying to shift the focus off of them and onto RFK. So RFK is evidently going to be interviewed by that committee again. So he'll be on the hot seat again soon. But I'm looking at the overall report here, the 20-page report. And to summarize very quickly, they're also looking at the root causes of autism, although they don't mention vaccines explicitly involving the root causes of autism. They're looking at more limiting of fluoride in public water supplies. Vaccine injury, as I mentioned, is on the table. Air quality, another important one, microplastics and synthetics. Food, in other words, nutrition as medicine, not just eating better, but food being almost used in a medicinal sense. Gut microbiome research, where the microbiome, the floral bacteria in your digestive system, which is so crucial to your health, they're looking at that more closely. So there's a lot of very positive things in here in terms of the topics, in terms of the goals. The question is this is a very tall order. This is a very ambitious project. Will RFK and his HHS, will they have blanks in the chamber, or are they going to fire real bullets? And I'm just using a metaphor, and really go after big pharma control, really go after corporate control and make this happen, because there are a lot of good goals, but in the time frame they have and considering the scope of this thing, are they really going to be able to pull this off? Of course, many of us would support the idea of doing it, but can they and will they actually pull it off? Because it's a very tall order. So there's some good news here, but it's a big mountain to climb. So I'll leave it at that for now.
Thank you, Mark. I'm going to say it's a shame that you even needed to qualify that statement by pointing out that it was a metaphor, but that's maybe a realization of the free speech situation that we're in these days. Look, let's finish with a light-hearted story in a sense, in one sense anyway. The Foreign Office put this tweet out yesterday. It's quite amusing. It features a video which is supposed to be, well, is it a humorous depiction? Let's have a look at the video itself here. A scenario involving MI6 delivering a declassified message to the Foreign Office. Now, the message, well, spoilers, you'll see it in a second. The message turns out to be an announcement about MI6 joining Instagram, and we've got to wonder about that. But MI5 joined Instagram in 2021 with the stated aim of showing exclusive views of life inside MI5 and to host questions and answers with intelligence officers. So the question is, has MI6 come in from the cold and joined the realms of reputation management? Is that what's going on? Well, maybe so, but not only for that purpose. It's also apparently about recruitment, particularly from abroad. So they seem to be struggling with recruitment at the moment because they've also launched a YouTube channel yesterday, and there's several videos on that. And these are all the same video, by the way. They're all posted in a bunch of different languages. I thought we might just briefly have a look at the English version of this.
For over 100 years, the bedrock of MI6's work has been face-to-face. Now we can make those connections even more securely online using our upgraded dark web portal, Silent Courier. So if you have access to sensitive information relating to global instability or hostile intelligence activity, you can now contact MI6 and share this securely using Silent Courier.
So, don't know what to make of that. I mean, clearly they feel that they need to encourage Russian, in particular. They're really looking for Russians to get involved in this, Russian whistleblowers or Russian spies to come and work for them. It's quite incredible.
So it's a reverse WikiLeaks that they've put on the dark web there. I mean, it's just kind of weird. This new public-facing spook agency posture is it's a bit
strange.
It's a bit strange. Maybe we'll just get used to it. Maybe they'll be doing what do they call those faceless videos, AI generated content. Maybe they knock out some of those videos with Palantir, making some cool little 3-minute, sprightly vids.
They might do. They say that Silent Courier aims to strengthen national security by making recruitment easier. They say that they're looking for potential agents in Russia in particular, as well as other parts of the world. And this was announced, by the way, this morning, because the outgoing C, and you can decide what C means for yourself, is at Istanbul today, apparently, to launch this in a speech there. So there we go.
It seems to me like the easiest, most economic route to national security, this is just me, I'm old-fashioned, is a negotiated peace agreement with your so-called adversaries. Isn't that the cheapest, most direct, and probably the most prosperous in the long term, if you think of the bilateral trade potential?
Well, Patrick, correct me if I'm wrong, but a few hundred years ago, because of a significant war, the Treaty of Westphalia was signed by a whole bunch of countries, which founded provided the basis for the modern nation state. The first clause of that says that you act in the interests of the other, and that is the best way to maintain peace. Yeah. We need to start talking with each other. Stop shutting down speech, talk, discuss, and maybe we come to some agreement on things. It's quite amazing how this kind of thing happens.
Yeah, the indivisibility of security, that all countries need to be secure in their borders and realms, not just the West. So anyway, novel thought.
Well, look, we've got to leave it there for today. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Patrick. Stay with us for some extra. We'll be back in a couple of minutes for that if you're a UK Column member. If you're not a member, please consider joining so that you can join us for that. But otherwise, have a great weekend. Don't forget Germ tonight, 7 p.m. We'll see you Monday, 1 p.m. as usual. See you then. Bye-bye.